Hi, Rachel Joy. This is a great question. And I, I've worked with a large number of sex offenders over the course of my career. And what I will say about sex offenders is that they are not all created equal. And there is a spectrum for people. One thing to note about sex offenders is that um, when someone is a sex offender, they that is typically a lifelong challenge that they have to address. And even when in prison, but even when people get out, a lot of people don't know how hard it is for sex offenders to actually do prison time. Most of them are given numerous chances before they are incarcerated. But to get back to your question again, it's something that they must work on every day if they're actively trying to change. But most of them, unfortunately, there's a high rate of recidivism or reoffending. And the when I left the prison system in California, they had sort of changed how they were addressing sex offenses in prison. In just how they wanted to address mental health treatment of prisoners in general, and that they wanted to only focus or largely focus on mental health aspects while incarcerated, as opposed to offense. And I can talk more about that later. But essentially, most most sex offenders will reoffend when they get out. Uh, they get better at it over time. As they get older, they get better at sort of hiding what they're doing. So they learn more skills and things like that to become more savvy. But other people that I've worked with, they know that they have a problem, and they know that they're exactly where they need to be. So, for example, I've had a lot of them that I've worked with child sex offenders, in particular, that are, they have TVs and things like that where they're able to watch television shows and things like that with children on them, and so they're attracted to children, and we would sort of talk about that, and they would be like, you know what, I'm not ready to get out. It's very hard for me to control my urges, and things like that. And you have people that are child sex offenders there. You have, you have people that are sex offenders by opportunity, meaning that they will just sexually assault when they get the opportunity. So that could be man, woman, child, anyone that they perceive to be vulnerable. If there's an opportunity there, they're going to take it. If the opportunity presents itself for them to get away with it. And again, those are people in prison that a lot of times they're very guarded and deceitful. So they may say, something like, I wasn't across the playground exposing myself. I was just drunk in public, and you know, it was what it was. And so they'll deny, and they want to avoid being associated with sex offenders, and they may become braggadocious. They may want to attack other people within the prison system, in and put on the air that they are like, hey, I hate sex offenders, I hate this and that. And so they'll just sort of try to take on this bravado, like, I'll do this, I'll do X, Y, and Z to sex offenders because I hate them. Meanwhile, they have that on their jacket, or on their file, is what I'll say. You have a lot of people that are in prison. Sex offending does not go away, and so they'll prey on other vulnerable inmates. So inmates with intellectual disabilities, cognitive disabilities, mental health challenges, and things like that, that will prey on that. And so, I was trained a lot. A good part of my training was also doing evaluations of sexual assault of inmates. So a lot of inmates, I've had to do interviews and sort of assess inmates who've been sexually assaulted. They call that the Prison Rape Elimination Act, or a PREA. So learning how to do PREA reports and things like that. I've had to do a lot of that because there are some intellectually disabled inmates that have been assaulted as well. And so people become very predatory. So that's one aspect of it that I've worked a lot with in terms of, within the system. And then I've also, unfortunately, when I left, we were getting an influx of general population inmates with sexual assault that would come from like super maximum security. And that is, you wouldn't want to be behind, you wouldn't even want to, be anywhere in the vicinity. You would want them behind 1,000 locked gates because they can be so violent and volatile and just scary. And in fact, there's been issues where, like, they come out of bounds. Like, if they feel any type of way about a staff member, where they will try to, go out of bounds, meaning that they'll try to go up to a staff member's office and try to assault them, and just very volatile. And that's a totally different category altogether, where these men were extremely, extremely dangerous. And so there's people in there that, again, there's a range, there's a spectrum. People that are willing to admit and willing to work on themselves and willing to do the work, and they're honest about where they're at with it. And they know that they're not necessarily ready to get out, and that they need a whole heck of a lot of treatment. And they agree with their prison sentence. You have people in there that just deny that they've ever done anything. And they feel offended that they would even be, charged with that, and they try to convince other people that this is all a mistake and this and that. And then you have people that, are behind bars, and they're still rapists, and that happens very often, where they're just violent and predatory, and there's, very little rehabilitation for that. But again, I don't care what anybody tells you, once you have a sex offense, I personally do not look at people, I don't care how much treatment that they've had with respect to that. I don't ever look at people as being cured. Once you're a sex offender, you're that for life. And so that's why people have to register. There's lots of people when they get out that don't register. They try to slip under the radar, and that's what I mean by people become more savvy because they try to evade registering. While people evade who knows who or what they've gotten their hands on when evading or failure to register. Hope that answers your question. I know that's kind of long-winded, but thanks for asking.